United Arab Emirates, celebrating its 49th National Day. The next 50 years starts here. Happy UAE National Day.
Yes, happy UAE National Day. I have a very important guest with me here today. Dr. Declan McCrohan, Associate Professor specializing in Finance and Economics at Model University, Dubai. Good morning, Dr. Declan.
Good morning, Rania. It's lovely to see you. How are you?
I'm very good. It's lovely to see you as well. So let's get started. Let's start by knowing where you're from and how long have you been living in the UAE?
I'm from Australia. So
Yes.
I grew up in Australia. I studied university there. I actually left Australia in 1998, I think. So
Wow.
I haven't lived in Australia for quite a while.
Yeah.
But I started work in the UAE, actually in Abu Dhabi in 2005.
Oh,
When
been a while.
I got a job at Zayed University. So I had a few months in Abu Dhabi and then transferred to our Dubai campus and had 6 years at Zayed University in Dubai. So basically, I've been living in the UAE since 2005.
15 years.
Had 3 years in Saudi Arabia
Nice.
from 2011 to 2014. But even then, most weekends I would travel back to Dubai, even though I was based in Riyadh. And still have property in Dubai, so I come back all the time.
That's awesome.
At the moment, I'm not in Dubai because of COVID.
Yeah,
So
I know
hopefully
that.
I'll be,
Hopefully
get
you'll
back.
be here. You'll be joining us soon in the UAE.
I hope so. Yes.
So
yes.
let's
So it's
start.
all.
Yeah. Go
Oh
ahead.
yes. So it's you're obviously on the verge of your 49th
49th
birthday
National Day.
celebrations for the
49th.
country. Yes.
Yes, absolutely. Well, I want to know what are your favorite memories here in the UAE, like some or favorite activities that you like to do here.
I always do remember. Obviously, Zayed University was at that time was an all-female Emirati university.
Yeah.
And I remember the first time I remember my first class and and my experience with the female Emirati students
Yes.
was everything that I wasn't expecting. But it was very positive, but it was very, very different from anything I've experienced in a classroom before.
Yeah.
I also remember the first time it rained. I think it happened on about the third day that I was in Abu Dhabi.
Yeah.
And the students ran outside, and I just thought this is strange, that everyone is getting so excited about the rain.
Yeah.
But
It is a big deal
lovely.
here.
Yes, yeah. So it was sort of strange that it happened so quickly in the first week that I was in the country.
Yeah.
But certainly, when I look back over my time in Dubai, that certainly was I think, a very unique opportunity for me to. I think for expats living in the UAE, it's sometimes difficult to perhaps have exposure to or have relationships with, have close relationships with Emiratis.
Yes.
That takes time to develop. So having students, university students that I would see every day over a long period, I had students that I saw on their first day that I would see every day until they graduated.
Yeah.
That sort of, I think, gave me an opportunity to get an insight into Emirati culture, which I really valued and really appreciated.
Absolutely. So the first thing that you experienced here is a bit of a cultural shock, let's just say. That is one of your favorite memories.
Well, it's
Kind of,
it's
but a good
very-
one. A good one.
Yeah, it's a very different, in terms of the way that students study, not just in the UAE, but I think this is across the Middle East.
Yeah.
The way that students study is very different to what I'd experienced in the West.
Right.
And I certainly think it made me a better educator and opened my mind, made me more flexible. And the ability to negotiate
Right.
from a student's perspective is something that I'd never experienced before, found very difficult to accept initially, but over time, it made me a much better teacher.
Absolutely. So, Professor Declan, since you specialize in the world of economics and finance, let's take a little bit of a turn here and ask you, why do you think UAE is an attractive business hub for startups and businesses in general?
Sure. I mean, it's an interesting question, and it's something that people are always discussing, researching. Obviously, there's some practical reasons. The location of the UAE in terms of its linkage between what we have in Europe, its location close to Asia, etc. So I think that's important. Certainly, the UAE is a unique place, and I think when you go there, you appreciate that everybody that's there seems to that they want to be there. They feel fortunate to be there,
Yeah.
and I think this triggers and creates a very positive environment. So I think that has a lot to do with it. Certainly, the workforce, the diversity of the workforce,
Diversity,
having
yeah.
people from so many different backgrounds. I think this generates a very interesting and unique workforce that can be very innovative. So, and certainly the UAE government, and both at the federal level and the Emirate level, very, very focused on business, very, very focused on trying to make the country an open place and an innovative place, a good place to do business. So I think all of these factors contribute to an environment where you have entrepreneurs will find this, I think, a welcoming place to do business, where there are opportunities to succeed, which is what entrepreneurs want.
So now let's tap a little bit into your teaching domain a little bit more and get your insights on the academic system here in the UAE. How do you evaluate it?
It's very international. I mean, we have so many different universities that have set up operations in the UAE. So in that sense, it's both, I mean, it's an interesting dynamic. It's both very young on one hand, but it's so very competitive on the other hand.
Yeah.
So students have a lot of choice. This puts pressure on academic institutions to offer products that are, that are professional,
Right.
that are unique, to try and attract students. And as I mentioned, the classrooms are extremely diverse, which I think is
It's incredible.
extremely valuable.
Yes.
For a student to be getting information, feedback from their colleagues in the classroom, from different,
You're getting the
it's
most from
incredible.
your educational experience, for sure,
Just to be exposed
when you're in a
to more
diverse
views,
environment.
thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is very important. So certainly, even from an educator's point of view, when I'm asking a question, often it's asked from the concept of, to give you a very simple example.
Yes.
When I'm teaching about finance or economics, I'm teaching about the concept of interest rates. From my background, from my perspective, interest rates is a function primarily of how much it costs to borrow money. But if you're looking at this perspective, maybe from a Chinese perspective, a student would look at interest rates as, okay, this is how much I can save if I invest money,
Yeah.
which is a fundamentally very different way to look at the same concept. And just to have that, that sort of diversity in the classroom, the way students are looking at things, it's certainly it's an advantage for students that do study in the UAE.
So let's talk about more about what the UAE or living in the UAE has added to your life. What is the added value of living in the UAE, and how has living in the UAE contributed to your life, let's say positively, and helped you in succeeding in reaching any milestones?
It's an interesting question. I'd like to know how many people I'm very pro UAE when I travel and when I return home to Australia. I'm always telling friends, family that it's you should come over. You should think about working here. It's a great place to work, etc. So I think in the ability to be able to obviously save money, the fact that there's no income tax. This makes it possible for people to save money. This opens up a whole range of opportunities in terms of their own life and their lifestyle, their ability to travel. And personally, this is something I'm struggling with during COVID. The ability living in the UAE for more than 10 years, in particular in Dubai, the ability to just think, maybe I'll head off somewhere this weekend, and to be able to go to Dubai airport and literally you have the choice to travel anywhere you want in the world.
Exactly.
It's something that's very unique, I think, to the UAE. So so I've loved having people come over, family, friends, people I've studied with, especially people that had a preconceived idea of what the UAE was.
Yeah.
And I used to love to see the look of almost shock on their face as they traveled throughout the UAE and just saw things that were not what they were
Astonishing,
expecting.
amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. So I always enjoyed that. But yeah, I've found UAE, even when I've been away at times for 6 months, even 12 months. At one stage, I think about 18 months that I wasn't there from 2015 to 2017, something like that. I flew back into Dubai airport and I felt like I was just flying home. It's it's my second home, the UAE, so it's a place that is very important to me.
Absolutely. Well, I just want to get lastly your wishes to the UAE on the 49th National Day occasion and your message to the public in celebrating it safely.
Sure. Well, it's going to be a unique celebration.
Yes.
And what I'm really hoping for is that everybody can think about next year, to be honest.
Yeah.
Next year will be the 50th celebration.
Yep.
That's going to be a really important event.
Milestone. Yeah.
And just everybody, please stay safe. Hopefully we're nearly through this thing. Lots of positive news regarding vaccine.
Yes.
So I'm sort of hoping for a wonderful 50th next year.
Inshallah.
This year we have some events that are being telecast online. So just everybody stay safe, follow the guidelines from the leaders of the country, and I hope everybody has a wonderful day.
Valuable words from you, Professor Declan. Thank you for being with us, and it would be a pleasure to actually have you physically join us here in the near future once you're back in the UAE on the morning Majlis to have some business-related discussions.
Absolutely. I'd love to do that, Rania. Thank you very much.
Thank you for being with us. Stay with us as we continue in honoring the UAE and celebrating the 49th National Day festivities nowhere else but on Pulse 95.
If you liked this episode of The Morning Majlis, drop a like and subscribe.
95.
Be sure to follow us on Instagram for all our daily updates and top stories.
Pulse.